Following the success of last year's Superman, Supergirl is the next film in the DCU, and this time based on my favorite comic of all time, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. And having seen the movie, I honestly have to say I am disappointed. This will be a spoiler-free review, so don't worry about getting spoiled for the movie whenever you're planning on seeing it, and let's get into the review. So to start off with some positives, Millie Alcock is amazing as Supergirl. She is one of the best casted characters in the DCU so far. Her performance in this movie is great. Same with Eve Ridley as Ruthie Marie Noel. She's doing great as a child actor, and she honestly gives one of the best performances in the movie. Jason Momoa is also great as Lobo. It has been his dream to play this character, and I'm finally happy that he got that chance. Lobo is great in the movie, and I'd love to see him, appear in more DCU projects, maybe even some animated stuff. David Krumholtz is also amazing as Zor-El. He is great. He shares this amazing scene with Kara that's fully in Kryptonian, that is truly heartbreaking to watch. You'll know it when you see it. Another positive is the look of this film for at least 70% of the time. For the first two acts, the movie actually looks really nice, and the outside scenes look great. It is until that last act that it does start to look a lot worse, and I don't know what happened there. Another positive is David Cornsweet as Superman. We've seen him in the trailer. He is in the movie for, I think, like 5 minutes combined, maybe less, and his scenes are amazing. He perfectly embodies Superman, and this movie even proves that further. He is probably going to become top 5 best comic book casted characters of all time by the time the DCU is finished or moves on to its next phase, because he is a perfect casting. Now on to some more positives is the world building this does for the DCU. Superman takes place, all on Earth, but this movie really shows you a lot more of what's going on in outer space, and it really expands the universe in a way that was really needed, and I really like the way they went about this. Another positive is the creative action scenes. There is a scene that takes place during a bus. The fight there is really creative. I believe we've seen a lot of it during the marketing, but just in case you stayed away from that, I won't spoil, but Kara is really awesome in her action. Another positive is the suit. We don't see it that much, but when we do, it's great. It looks really good in a scene that we've seen a lot in the trailers, which is Kara versus the Brigands. It looks great, and I think that pretty much ends the positives. Maybe another one I can think of is the theme song is kind of stuck in my head now, although it's not that great, and the score isn't really good as well. The theme song is at least catchy, and I'd love to see David Fleming's rendition of it in Man of Tomorrow, since Supergirl is confirmed to be a part of that. Now we move on to the negatives. First of all, the movie isn't really that funny. There is a lot of funny jokes from the comics, which this isn't a spoiler, when Kara is cursing and Ruthie has no idea what that is and thinks the curse word she's saying is her husband. I think that was a really funny joke that they could have adapted in this movie, and I was waiting for it, but they just didn't. The humor that really lands is the ones with David Cornsweet as Superman, and some with Lobo, but honestly, it's like 30% of the humor that lands. The rest of it sort of falls flat for me. Another negative is a lot that they cut from the comic. This isn't really a Woman of Tomorrow adaptation because, they just take the plot and just the middle of the film is just so random. The only thing that's really pulled from the comic outside of the plot is the Green Sun planet, which we've seen a lot of from the trailer. Other than that, it's just a Woman of Tomorrow adaptation that just takes the plot and just makes up the rest. Another problem is it's pretty generic in terms of the story. There are a lot of generic tropes that the comic really flips on its head, and a lot of changes which benefits the comic and makes it feel special and not redundant, but this movie, being an adaptation of that, does not do the same, and the tropes end up feeling just standard. While I praise the visuals for a good chunk of the film, the final act, specifically when this whole tornado sequence is going on, that looks really bad. The green screen, the needle drops is another negative. They do not hit at all. Craig Gillespie usually does great needle drops like in Cruella, but for some reason here, they do not hit at all. The one at the end is just so bad. Another thing that hurts this movie is the non-linear storytelling. When Crypto gets hurt, which is obviously something we see in the trailer, we don't really know Crypto and Kara's bond, which is something that they expand on later, and the moment would have hit a lot more if we knew what Crypto meant to Kara. Another thing that really hurts the movie is Krem. They casted a great guy to play the traditional comic version of him, yet they completely changed him to just be a monster ripped out of Mad Max. And it really doesn't help that they make another change to the Brigands as a whole in this movie that sort of disconnect them from the main storyline. I'm not going to spoil what it is. Krem does all these horrible things, and we're supposed to be, like, this is a crazy villain, which we kind of do see that, but it doesn't hit as hard because he's very goofy a lot, and he's not really written that well. He feels very much like a MCU Phase 1 villain. This whole movie feels like an MCU Phase 1 movie. If I were to rank it with the MCU Phase 1 movies, it would probably be like fourth place. I feel like the movies that are definitely under are Thor and The Incredible Hulk. I'm not sure about Iron Man 2 yet. Another negative with this movie is the score. Like I mentioned before, it feels very non existent. Like they keep spamming the main theme, which I like the main theme, but the rest of the score just feels not existent. Like Superman had Last Sun, Look Up, those were amazing tracks. This movie only has one, having listened to the full album, that I like. The rest of it is just things that I'd skip. This movie does feel very like Timu Guardians of the Galaxy. I feel like Craig Gillespie thought James wanted him to make a Guardians film, like 3C Film said, and just made something that's Guardians of the Galaxy but not as good. Like there are many things in this movie that scream Guardians of the Galaxy, and even the alien designs are literally Guardians of the Galaxy. That honestly messed this up. I feel like if it was trying to be its own thing instead of Guardians, it would have been a lot better. So I'm sad to say that I was disappointed with this, Woman of Tomorrow being my favorite comic of all time. I was expecting a lot more from this movie. I'd probably give it a 6.4 out of 10. Maybe it'll age better on rewatch, but they make a very controversial choice and change to the ending that really bothered me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. But luckily, that final scene got me very excited for the future of the DCU. There are no post-credit scenes, which is very weird. They could have made that final scene be the post-credit scene. I don't know why they didn't. And they easily could have put something at the end saying Supergirl will return in Man of Tomorrow, which is something we already know, but they could have easily done that to build at least some sort of hype. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thanks so much for watching.